Welcome back. In this video, we're going to take a look at the bar on bar bar chart. But before we even look at it, I actually want to explain why we'd use that chart type. So we're going to hop into Tableau. I've already connected to the Superstore dataset, and I'm using Tableau 2020.2. What I have showing on my screen right now is a subcategory and year for 2019 and 2020 broken down and showing sales. So side-by-side bar charts. Now, there's nothing wrong with a side-by-side bar chart. The challenge, though, here is that we're probably not interested in both 2020 and 2019. We're probably just interested in the difference between those values or comparing the two, or just seeing how much more, how much less 2020 is relative to 2019, since 2020 is my recent year of data I have showing here. Now, instead of doing a side-by-side bar chart, the more preferred option might be a bar on bar chart. And that looks just like this, right? We just take 2019, we'll put it behind 2020, we'll maybe make the 2020 bar a little bit smaller and add a label for the 2020 values. Now, to me, this seems like the easier way to do it, or the easier way to show it. There's less that ink to white space ratio, nice and even. Or, the same thing being shown in a totally different way of showing the bar on bar. There's actually two ways to do it, and this video is going to show you both ways. We'll actually start with option number 2 because it's the easier way to do it, and then we'll go on to do the bar chart number 1, where if you take a look at it and zoom in on columns, you'll see there's just one measure, and the number 2 here is a 2-measure option. So we'll start with the 2-measure option, and then we'll go back to the 1-measure option because it'll be far more self-explanatory. So let's just create a new sheet, and I'm going to hop in and go find subcategory, place that out onto rows. I'm going to go find sales and start by putting sales out on my view on columns as well, just to give us something to start with. From here, really, we're not going to use sales on columns, but at least it builds out my view to have me start thinking about these bar on bar charts. What I'm going to do is create 2 calculations, one for sales for 2019 and one for sales for 2020. And the way we're going to do this, I'm going to just call this sales 2020. I'm going to do an aggregation, say sum. Then I'm going to do if year of order date, and date is my date field in this case, is 2020. Then sales, that's my measure that I'm interested in, and then my aggregation in this case being sum. So I'm going to aggregate these values up. I'll have an error here because this calculation already exists, but this is a properly written calculation. From here, I can hit OK. Let's pretend I hit OK. I have 2020 existing. By the way, I'm going to repeat this process for 2019. So I'm just going to close this out, and maybe instead of typing out 2019, I'll just right-click and edit my existing calculation. Once again, the same setup here. Inside my aggregation, I'm using an if statement. That's the better way to do it. If the year of the order date is 2019, return my measure, end. And that's it. 2 values, same measure, just breaking it out by year. And I'm hard-coding the value in here, but if I were writing this for a workbook for professionally, I would automate this 2019 based on some value in my data set. So let's just, I'm going to close out of this, and we're going to now build out that bar on bar chart. We'll take 2019, bring that out on our view, and then we'll take 2020, place it to the right on columns as well. We can just right click, dual axis, and synchronize these axes. We've got dot plots showing up right now. We're going to change the defaults here on both by clicking on the all of the marks card, changing automatic to bar. Now we'll have bar on top of bar. We can also, on this all marks card, so again, all as it's highlighted, click, drag, and remove measure names. We don't need that. From here, let's just make sure that our axes are synchronized. Yep, I did that. But we're also going to hide this axis because we're going to add labels on 2020. So I'm just right-clicking and unchecking show header, getting rid of that header to go with it. Now on the 2020 marks card, that's going to be the one on the right. You can just click on it. So just clicking on the actual value on columns will take me to that marks card. If you do that trick, that's awesome. If that's to me, it was when I learned it, by the way, it was just one of those awesome things. But I'm going to change my color here. I'm going to make it dynamic. I'm just going to create a new calculation so that if my 2020 value is greater than my 2019, I want to call that out. So I'm just going to click and drag my 2020 measure, my aggregation, and say if it's greater than 2019. And I'm going to call this sales bar 20 versus 19. Now we'll hit OK. Got this comparison. Just going to place it right on color. Change the size to be slightly smaller. And we can play around with the color a little bit. I can change my true to be blue, and then maybe my false will be this default red by Tableau. Then my 2019 color is one color, but I'm going to make it a lighter gray for the background. Last two steps. One is to add our label. So I'm just going to click on the 2020 marks card again. I'm going to choose show mark labels, and that'll show my mark labels now for the most recent year. If I wanted to add additional context on the change year over year, I could do that too. In fact, let's just go ahead and do that. Let's add that in. What we'll just do is we'll create a new calculated field real quick, and we'll say in parentheses, this is going to be the change over time, 2020 minus 2019. So that's the difference. And then if we just divide this by the 2019 value as well, this gives us the sales percent change. I'm going to hit OK. And now we can just place our percent change. We'll take 2010 sales, by the way, place it on label, and we'll take this percent change as well and place that on label. So we have two labels. We just need to change that percent change to be a percentage. So let's do that. Number format, percentage, no decimals for me, please. And then after I have no decimals, in fact, I might just do this. Let's do a plus if it's positive and minus if it's negative. And if it's 0, we'll do that. So we have three values going in here. The values before the first semicolon is the positive values, the middle set is negative, and the last value here is if it is actually 0. Hit OK. Again, not perfect by any means. I probably would want to format my text, but I've already gone above and beyond for this visualization. Last little bit is to just right click, format. Let's get rid of the row dividers, not needed. Tableau brings them in by default on a dual axis. And then we can also get rid of our 0 lines. And if we really want to get rid of them too, we can get rid of our grid lines because they're not doing anything for us there. We could bring in a 0 line. It might be worth bringing that back in. Let's try that again, 0 line. We could bring that in, or potentially bringing an axis ruler back in as well. Either or works. It adds a nice little baseline to the view. And that's, that's it. That's the bar on bar when I use a dual axis chart. If I'm going to work with one axis, then we're going to do that a little bit different. So a single axis chart, we'll just start once again doing this separately. We'll do sales out on our view on columns. We'll go find subcategory, place that out on rows. We'll have this fit our entire view. We're going to now go find order date. Order date is that date field that we're going to use for years. We're going to bring that out on filters, select years. We're just going to choose 19 and 20. We're only interested in 2 years of data. Now we can take order date once again and add that onto color. Now I've already set my colors, my 19 to be gray and my 20 to be blue. So I don't have too much to do in terms of color formatting, but I'll just bring that out onto my view, onto color, and I'll also put it on size. And Tableau broke it down by quarter, so you're seeing an interesting view where it's year and then size by quarter, but I'm just going to change this aggregation back to year. So we have these two bars sitting on top of each other, 2020 and 2019. I'm actually just going to flip the order of these because I want the 2020 bar to be narrower than the 2019 bar. The last step I have to do here is just say, go to analysis at the top, and by default, Tableau stacks marks. It's actually a little known thing that Tableau does is that it'll automatically stack marks. If we turn that off, we'll see that now become a bar on bar chart. And now when it comes down to the sizing of that bar, we just have to move this around a little bit to get it to look the way that we want to. And if you want the label on 2020 only, you have to. Well, you don't have to, but you're probably going to have to create a 2020 only aggregation like we just did, where the calculation again is if the year of the order date is 2020, then sales, no else statement, end, then hit OK and bring that value out on label, and you'll have your 2020 labels to go with it. In this technique, though, the one thing that you won't be able to do is bring out this percent change calculation. You actually might be able to get away with it the way that we have set this up. I don't think so, though. Yeah, it's not going to work because we already are partitioning on our view 2019 and 2020, so it's not going to be able to do the delta between those. What you'll have to use is a table calculation to get that percent change, which, let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to click and drag out onto label sales, and we have those broken down as we see here. That's actually also adding labels for 2019, but they're not showing up because there's overlap. I can just click on this and do a quick table calculation and choose percent difference. And Tableau is doing a percent difference, but we just need to check to see how it's doing it. And we can edit our table calculation here. Say, all right, so percent difference from, we want to say for every subcategory, give me the percent change by year of order date. And if we close that out, we'll see that none of those calculations are coming through because the order is actually in the wrong order. It's using 2020 as the baseline, and it's going down. And the way I know that it's going down in this case is it's how our axis is set up. So we can edit our table calculation. And what we'll need to do is we can just hard code and say relative to 2019, and that'll give us the difference. So a little bit more work to get to the 2020 changes, but what do we our final result? It's the bar on bar chart. And what are the benefits of this bar on bar chart? Number one, you're able to compare subcategories a lot easier because instead of looking at every other bar where it says 2019, 2020, and you want to just look at 2020 across subcategory, they're now right next to each other. So we've removed that stack, made it way easier for us to look at. And then part two is when we stack those values on top of each other, it also makes for an easier comparison of the two values because they're right on top of each other. You can easily pick out which value that you're trying to compare to because it's sitting on top of that value. And frankly, we added an extra twist by showing the percent change as well to go with it. So it's just a nice little addition. That said, that's the bar on bar chart. I guess the question I have for all of you is, which technique would you prefer? Would you prefer the single measure or the dual axis measure? Put down in your comments which you would use, and we'll take a look and showcase that out in our next video. That said, that's this video. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.